Okay, so back in our design, let's go to our lighting control block controller. Mine's right here in the middle, once again called long lighting control block controller. Open that puppy up, and let's go to its edit window. And we're gonna explore more of the TCP connection blocks that we didn't look at last time. So first thing I want you to do is actually go back to your connections branch, click on dev lights. That's the TCP connection we made for the lighting controller. And we kind of glossed over these last time. Let's look at them a little bit more closely now. We did connection dev lights write before. That's how we sent a string to the device. We have one called connection dev lights read, which then is asking for a number. That seems weird. Read means that you're literally going to be taking the information that it's getting from the device, but you're asking for a particular number of bytes. How many characters do you want to read of what it is sending you? Hopefully, you don't need to use this one too often. You would only need to use that if you're working with a device that does not include an end-of-line character. So we talked about this kind of earlier, where the \r says that I'm done. I'm finishing it off. We know whenever you have a half duplex system where only one system can talk at a time while the other one waits, you need to have the first device end its talking by saying, "Hey, I'm done." Kind of like a walkie-talkie where you say over to let that person know you're done talking, and now it's their turn to depress the button and they can talk because they can't hear you while they're talking, right? So most devices will have some sort of end-of-line character. If you don't have that, then instead you would have to use this read, and you would have to know the length of the buffer of data that's coming in order to grab all that data out of it. We're not going to need to know that, but just for you to know. What else do we have in here? We have a connection dev lights is connected. This is a Boolean. This is a true or false. Is the device currently connected? That right there will resolve as true or false, and that's great to use for various things. Then we've got some event handlers. On connection dev lights connect, on connection dev lights disconnect. So when you successfully make a connection with the device or when it disconnects, you could have something happen right here. And those event handlers, this right here is the one we really want. On connection dev lights, receive of message ending with custom do. Well, that's a lot of words. Let's bring it in anyways. Grab that guy and let's bring it down to the bottom of our script. All right, receive of message. That message is going to essentially be a local variable internal to this event handler. If you want to rename it, you can, but I'm going to leave it as message. Ending with custom, and then I've got a little input tooth here. So ending with custom is telling us that it's looking for an end-of-line character. We happen to know that our device does use an end-of-line character of \r. How do we know that? It told us that in the API. End-of-line equals \r. You might not always get it given to you in such a nice manner. You may have to dig through the manual. It may just say it ends with a carriage return, and it's on you to know that Lua represents carriage returns by \r. However it is you get it, that's what we're looking for our end of line. Now, you could, let me zoom in a little bit. You could drop this down to say any. That way, it'll look for any of the most common end-of-line characters, and that's generally pretty safe. But if you do know what it is, then why not act with specificity if you have the option? Since we know ours is a carriage return, we can look in here. The options are character return with a line feed, character return line feed strict, just a line feed, null. Character return isn't an option just on its own, so let's actually make this a custom, and we will add the carriage return ourselves with a string block. That'll just be a \r.
And if you wanted to, you could also make it /x0d.
Tell us more, Jeff. What does that mean?
/x0d is simply the hexadecimal representation of the same 8-bit sequence of /r. You're going and grabbing the very same 8-bit sequence. Another reason to think about that is because if you are familiar with reading APIs, often they will tell you something like, use a CR or use a 0D. They're all trying to say the same thing, use a carriage return. So use hex 0D, use /R. They're all interchangeable at the end of the day.
All right, I have split my screen between the script and the UCI. Remember, if you're coming back to this after a while, double check that your IP address is correct and the port is correct. Looking in your API. For me, I can change the lights in the room. Remember, we have it set up to tell us that we're sending a following command of various information. But we're not getting any information back from the lighting controller yet. So here in our code, on connections, receive message with custom end of line. Let's just print what we get from the device. So go to your system, grab a debug print, snap that in there, and we're going to put the message block. You can just hover over the word message, grab that variable, shove it into your print, and then we'll save our changes. Well, immediately, look at this. We've gotten a greeting from the device. It says, welcome to the Really Good Lights 2000 on TC port 5103. This particular device is set up so that when a connection is established, it says hello. How nice is that? It's proof that our message is working, that that's coming in from the device, and we are indeed able to get it and give it to ourselves. That's great. Now, let's make some changes to the lights. I turn it on. Whoa, I got a whole bunch of debugs. It gave me all of its reports as it changed all the way from 30 all the way up to 99. That was a lot of information coming in, right? It is indeed reporting back to us LVL at XX is giving us the current setting. That's perfect. We need that information so that we can update our stuff. Okay, well, let's think about this. We need to do something with that information. Well, before we do something with that information, we do want to make sure that we only do something with that information if it is an actual report of its current state, right? Because we also had that greeting up above. We don't want to react if it's just saying hello to us. We don't want to do anything with that. So we only want to do something if it's giving us a certain type of message. That means we need an if statement, right? We need some sort of conditional evaluation of what is going on. So let's grab ourselves an if statement in our flow control, drop it on in here. And then the question is, how can we evaluate whether or not this is the right kind of thing? Jeff, you're a student who's never used block controller before. What are your thoughts on this? What are we going to do here?
Well, I'm thinking that it really is kind for the lighting controller to say hello, but it's kind of creating extra work for me, because if it didn't say hello, then I could really just get to work. So I really need some sort of block that's going to help me separate out the really polite welcome message from the stuff I really care about.
Sure. So you need to see whether or not the message equals the word hello in some ways or not, or if the message equals the words LVL in some capacity,
Yeah,
right?
it would. It would be super helpful if I could sort these messages out from the ones I care about from the ones I don't care about.
All right, well, that clearly tells me we are going to be doing some sort of comparator of some kind. We need to know what is inside this message. And we can do that. If you look in your strings block, browse through this. Jeff, do you see any blocks in here that might help us do that filtering job that you were just talking about?
Right. So as I read through this thing, if I get down the right in string, find first occurrence, like maybe. So it's a good question. That's a good thing. In string blank, find first occurrence of string. Now that is interesting. That sure looks like it would do the right thing. However, if we hover over that block, it says it returns the index of either the first or last occurrence of the first string in the second string. So for instance, if we're trying to find if this return message has LVL in it, then this is going to report back 1, because 1 is the index, the placement in the character string of where it finds that thing we're looking for. That's not as useful to us. We don't really know 1. We need something more that's going to give us a true or false if this thing does contain it. Right.
Oops, I may have just said the keywords there.
We could. Sorry.
Right? No. I said it on accident because it's normal English, right? I was just saying it casually. Does this thing contain it? And look right here, does contain.
Yeah, that's good. Right, I agree. I think let's see what does contain does for us.
So yeah, grab the does contain block and we're going to snap that into our if statement. If, and this will all entirely resolve to a true or false, the whole block will eventually be true or false. Does the first string contain the second string? So what's the first string? What are we looking in?
I'm looking in that string that came back to me.
Yeah, the message.
I think you're calling it message. I called it RX.
Awesome. You could 100% rename this. You could name this the thing it gave us. And that would propagate forward too. We can look in, we can print the thing it gave us, we can look in the thing it gave us. And then what are we looking for?
We should.
Better question. Do we want to filter out the good message or do we want to filter in the bad message? We could really go either way with this.
I think so. But if we think, I think I'd rather just get to the finding the thing I'm looking for instead of finding the thing I'm not looking for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There might be, cases later on where there are other things you want to react to from the device, in which case this if statement might have lots of if-elses. If it gets this type of message, do this. If it gets some other message, do this.
Gosh.
But right now, we're really only looking for one message that we're going to react to. So I agree. Let's just look for that first thing.
The really good lights is so helpful.
Yeah.
So many things it can tell us.
So we know the good messages are LVL at something. So let's just look for LVL at. LVL at. We know that every status report will include those 4 characters, and it's probably unlikely that any other message this device is going to send us will include those 4 characters in that sequence, right? If we were only looking for an L, that wouldn't be enough because we'd probably get a false positive when it says hello and we get the character L there in the word lights, right? So just looking for L isn't enough. If we just look for LV, that might not be enough too. Maybe some other message it says would include LV. So give it as much information as you can. We're looking for LVL ats. And then if we do find that thing, all right, what do we want to do?